It was the kind of night that seemed to stretch on forever. The sky hung low and heavy, as if the stars themselves were trying to escape the thick fog that blanketed the small town of Elms Hollow. The moon, a pale crescent, struggled to pierce through the mist. The streets were eerily quiet, save for the occasional creak of an old house settling or the rustle of leaves stirred by a cold wind. At exactly midnight, a strange sound cut through the silence. A distant melody, faint and sweet, carried on the wind. It was the kind of tune that made you want to close your eyes and lose yourself in its rhythm. But something about it was wrong, like a lullaby from a long-forgotten nightmare. It seemed to tug at the edges of the mind, luring you to follow it. And follow it they did. The people of Elms Hollow had always been a superstitious bunch, and their small town, tucked away in the forgotten corners of the world, had its fair share of ghost stories. They spoke of strange occurrences, unseen shadows moving in the fog, whispers in the dead of night, and lights that flickered in the woods when there was no one there. But nothing prepared them for what was about to happen. It started with a single, dusty old tent. No one had seen it arrive, and yet, by the time the clock struck midnight, it was there. Standing tall and imposing at the edge of town, on the vacant lot that had been abandoned for years. The tent was black as midnight, adorned with peeling gold lettering that read, "The Midnight Carnival. Dreams made flesh." It wasn't the first carnival to visit Elms Hollow, but it was certainly the strangest. The posters had appeared mysteriously on street corners only hours before, and no one knew how or when they had been put up. The townsfolk were cautious, their instincts warning them against stepping too close. Yet, as the eerie music played louder, curiosity began to stir. The people who ventured into the carnival never returned the same. Lily Horn had heard the whispers. She'd heard them in school, at the diner, even from her best friend, Emma. They all talked about the carnival, the strange promises it made, the impossible things it offered, riches, beauty, fame. The whispers grew louder in the weeks leading up to tonight, as more people disappeared into the mist, only to return hollow-eyed and forever changed. Some didn't return at all. Lily wasn't sure what to believe, but she knew one thing for certain. Her life was dull, boring, ordinary. She was just a 19-year-old girl stuck in a nowhere town. Her dreams of escape nothing more than fantasies whispered into her pillow at night. And right now, those fantasies were beginning to feel more like a nightmare. She stood at her bedroom window, her hand on the glass, watching the carnival unfold in the distance. The carnival lights blinked like 1,000 glowing eyes in the fog, calling to her. The music swirled in the air, like a strange invitation. She had to go. Emma Dawson was Lily's best friend, and the one person who could always talk her into things she wasn't sure about. They'd been inseparable since childhood. But tonight, Emma seemed different. She'd been quiet for days, ever since she'd gotten back from the carnival. Her skin was pale, her eyes sunken with dark circles. When Lily had asked her about it, Emma had mumbled something about too much excitement and needing to sleep. But Lily could tell there was more to it than that. She had seen the way Emma's fingers trembled when she looked at the carnival from a distance. "I'm not going," Emma said now, shaking her head as she sat on Lily's bed, her eyes fixed on the glowing lights in the distance. "It's not what they say it is. Trust me, Lily." But Lily wasn't listening. She felt a pull in her chest, something she couldn't explain. Emma was always cautious, always thinking ahead. Lily had never been like that. She wanted something more, something exciting, something that would make her life feel real. The carnival promised that, and more. "I'm going," Lily declared, her voice firm. "And I'm not going alone." Emma's eyes widened, a mix of fear and concern flashing across her face. "Lily, you don't understand. It's not what they say it is. People, they don't come back the same. Some don't come back at all." Lily shook her head. "You're just scared. Come with me, Emma. We'll figure it out together. It'll be fine." Emma didn't respond. She just stared out the window, her expression distant, as if she were seeing something Lily couldn't. It didn't take long for the word to spread. Soon, there were others on the streets, walking toward the carnival in groups, talking excitedly about the strange promises of the Midnight Carnival. Some wore hopeful smiles, Others nervously glanced around. No one knew exactly what they were going to see, but there was something magnetic about it, something irresistible. Lily and Emma walked together, though Emma kept her distance, her eyes darting nervously in every direction. The fog seemed to thicken as they got closer, and the lights of the carnival flickered with an eerie rhythm. The music grew louder, wrapping around them like a spell. The entrance to the carnival was an archway made of twisted metal, painted a deep crimson, with strings of silver bells hanging from the top. As they passed beneath it, the air seemed to change. The temperature dropped, and the world outside the carnival felt distant, muffled, as if they had crossed into another realm entirely. "This is it," Lily whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of excitement and fear. "Are you sure you don't want to come?" Emma shook her head slowly. "I can't. I won't. But I'll wait for you." Lily smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. She had no idea what awaited her beyond the gates, but she felt a thrill racing through her veins. She stepped forward into the darkened grounds, her heart pounding. A man appeared from the shadows, tall, gaunt, with pale skin that glistened unnaturally under the carnival lights. He wore a red and black striped jacket and a top hat that shadowed his eyes. His smile was wide, too wide, stretching across his face like a jagged scar. "Welcome," he said, his voice deep and smooth, like velvet. "Welcome to the Midnight Carnival, where dreams come true, for a price." Lily felt a shiver run down her spine, but she forced herself to smile. "I'm just here for the fun." The man's grin widened. "Ah, of course. But remember, young lady, nothing comes without cost. Every wish, every dream, has a price." Before Lily could ask what he meant, the man vanished into the shadows, leaving her standing in front of a row of tents, each one darker than the last. The carnival was full of wonders, bright lights, strange sights, and performers that defied all logic. But there was something off about it, something that gnawed at Lily's senses. The people who wandered the grounds all looked like they were in a trance, their eyes wide and empty, lost in the dreamlike haze that filled the air. Lily hesitated but then walked forward, drawn by a strange, unexplainable pull. Her feet carried her past strange sights. A woman with wings that fluttered like a bird's, a man with a lion's mane who played a haunting melody on a violin. And then, she saw it, the tent that caught her breath. It was different from the others, darker, with a heavy velvet drape, glowing faintly with a cold blue light. A sign above the entrance read, "Your deepest desire." Lily's heart pounded in her chest. She stepped forward, not thinking, her hand reaching out to pull the heavy velvet aside. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet trembled. A loud, bone-chilling scream echoed from inside the tent. Lily froze. A shadow moved in the corner of her eye, and when she turned to look, Emma was gone. Lily's heart skipped a beat. She spun around, her pulse racing as she tried to locate Emma. The fog hung thick in the air, swirling in unnatural patterns. The carnival, once so bright and inviting, now seemed to pulse with an eerie, otherworldly glow, its lights flickering in rhythm with her rapidly quickening heartbeat. "Emma?" Lily called out, her voice trembling. She took a few steps back from the ominous tent, her eyes scanning the crowd of strange performers and even stranger visitors. The scream she'd heard echoed in her mind, its raw, desperate quality sending a chill down her spine. But there was no sign of Emma. She couldn't be too far. She had to be around here somewhere. "Emma?" she called again, her voice louder this time, though the words felt hollow in the thick air. No one responded. Lily's breath caught in her throat as the reality of the situation began to settle in. The carnival was different from what she'd expected. Too dark, too strange, and now, with Emma gone, it felt downright sinister. She turned back toward the velvet-draped tent. It stood like an open mouth in the fog, beckoning her forward. Something inside Lily told her she couldn't leave without finding Emma, but another part of her, the part that had driven her here in the first place, whispered that the answers she was searching for were inside the tent. Shaking her head, she took a deep breath and pushed the heavy curtain aside. The instant she stepped through, the temperature dropped, as if she had entered another world entirely. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and incense, heavy and suffocating. The tent was dark, lit only by a single lantern that cast long, eerie shadows across the ground. In the center of the room stood a strange figure, a woman draped in flowing white robes, her face obscured by a veil. She didn't move as Lily entered but instead stood perfectly still, as though waiting. "Come in, child." The woman's voice was a low murmur, almost hypnotic. "You've come seeking, haven't you?" Lily swallowed hard, trying to steady her breath. I'm looking for my friend. She was just here. Her name is Emma." The woman's veil fluttered slightly, and her eyes, though hidden, seemed to glitter with an unsettling knowing. "Emma is lost. But you are not." "Not yet." Lily's throat tightened. "What do you mean? Where is she?" The woman's lips curled into a soft, almost pitying smile. "Emma made a choice that brought her closer to her deepest desire. And now she's paying the price." Lily's heart skipped. "Paying the price? What does that mean?" The woman's smile widened, though it did nothing to ease Lily's nerves. "Every wish, every dream, comes with a cost. The Midnight Carnival offers you what you want most in this world, your deepest desire. But nothing is ever truly free." Lily felt a cold shiver crawl down her spine. "What kind of cost?" The woman's smile faded, her voice lowering to a whisper. "A piece of yourself. Your soul, perhaps. A memory, a dream, or something you hold dear. The price is different for everyone, and it is never revealed until it is too late." Lily took a step back, her pulse racing. She wanted to run, to leave this place and never look back, but her feet felt rooted to the ground. There was something powerful, something irresistible drawing her in. "Where is Emma?" Lily asked again, her voice steadier now. "I need to find her." The woman's expression softened, though her eyes never left Lily's. "She has chosen her desire, and now she must face the consequences. But you," she paused, tilting her head slightly, "you are different. You have not yet made your choice. You can still walk away." Lily's stomach churned. Every instinct in her told her to turn and run, but her curiosity, that deep yearning for something more, kept her rooted in place. "What happens if I choose?" she asked, barely able to form the words. "What's the cost?" The woman's lips parted, but before she could speak, the lantern flickered, casting a sudden, harsh light across the room. A shrill laugh echoed from the shadows, low, mocking, and chilling. Lily spun around, her heart pounding in her chest. In the corner of the tent, a man stepped forward. A tall, gaunt figure with pale skin and dark eyes that seemed to glow with an unnatural light. His smile was wide, stretching across his face like a predator's grin. "Ah, another one," the man said, his voice dripping with amusement. "So eager to make your choice, aren't you?" Lily's breath caught. There was something deeply unsettling about him, something wrong, but she couldn't tear her eyes away from his strange, magnetic presence. The woman in white stepped back, her veil fluttering once more as if in a silent surrender. The man tilted his head, his eyes narrowing as he looked Lily up and down. "Do you know what you're asking for?" he asked softly, almost like a lover's caress. "Do you understand the price of desire?" Lily swallowed hard. I don't want anything that costs too much. I just want to find my friend. I need to know where she is." The man's grin only widened. "Your friend made her choice just like everyone else. But I can tell you this, child. The path you choose is never as simple as you think." Lily felt her knees weaken, but she steeled herself. She had to find Emma. She had to make sure she was okay. "I don't care about the cost," Lily said, her voice rising with desperation. "I'll pay it. Just tell me where she is." The man's smile faltered, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Very well. But remember, you asked for this." He extended a long, thin finger, pointing toward the far corner of the tent. Lily's eyes followed his gesture, her breath catching as she saw a small, ornate door hidden in the shadows. It wasn't there before. She was sure of it. The door seemed to pulse with an unnatural light, almost as if it were alive, beckoning her forward. "What's behind that door?" Lily asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Your friend," the man replied, his grin turning into something much darker. "And the truth." Without another word, Lily turned and began to walk toward the door. Each step felt heavier than the last, as though something were trying to hold her back. But she couldn't stop now. Not when Emma's safety, and perhaps her own future, was on the line. When she reached the door, she hesitated. The silence in the tent was suffocating, and Lily's skin prickled with the sensation of being watched. With a final deep breath, she reached for the handle. And then, before she could turn it, she heard a soft voice behind her. "Lily." She froze. It was Emma's voice. "Emma?" Lily called out, spinning around in the direction of the sound. But the tent was empty, silent except for the faint rustling of the heavy fabric. "Lily, help me." Lily's pulse quickened as she raced back toward the center of the tent. Her heart was pounding in her chest, and her mind raced with fear and confusion. "Emma, where are you?" But there was no response, only the unsettling stillness. Her eyes scanned the darkness once more, but there was no sign of Emma. The only thing left was the ominous door. Lily reached for it, her hand trembling. She had to know the truth. Lily's hand hovered over the door handle, her fingers twitching with anticipation. She could hear the sound of her own heartbeat, pounding in her chest like a drum. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, to run, to forget about whatever lay beyond this door. But Emma's voice echoed in her ears, the desperation in her tone pulling her forward. "Help me, Emma," Lily whispered, her throat dry. She could almost feel her friend's presence on the other side of the door, like a shadow lurking just out of reach. With a trembling hand, she gripped the cold metal handle and twisted it. The door creaked open, and a wave of cold air washed over her, carrying with it a strange, sweet scent that made her head spin. She stepped through, her heart racing in her chest. The room beyond was unlike anything she had expected. It was vast, stretching on in every direction, though no walls were visible. The air was thick with fog, and the floor was covered in a soft, golden mist that glowed faintly beneath her feet. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and atop it was a large, crystal-clear orb. It pulsed with an eerie light, its surface shimmering like liquid glass. Lily felt a sudden pull toward it, as though the orb was calling her. She took a hesitant step forward, then another, and before she knew it, she was standing in front of the pedestal, staring down at the orb. It felt alive, vibrating with some unseen energy. "Emma?" Lily whispered again, her voice barely audible. The room seemed to hum with a strange, melodic tune, a soft, haunting melody that stirred something deep inside her. The moment her fingers brushed the surface of the orb, everything changed. The air around her seemed to warp, twisting and bending as though reality itself was bending under the weight of something far more powerful than she could comprehend. The mist thickened, swirling around her, and the golden light from the orb intensified, blinding her. A voice, deep and resonant, filled her mind. It wasn't just a sound. It was a presence, a pulse, a force that seemed to touch every corner of her being. "You have come for your deepest desire, child." Lily froze, her breath catching in her throat. She couldn't move. She couldn't speak. The voice was inside her mind, and yet it didn't feel like her own thoughts. It was something other, something ancient. "Do you understand the price?" The voice continued. "The price is not something you can pay easily. It is a choice, a sacrifice. Choose wisely." The mist around her seemed to grow denser, and Lily's head began to spin. She wanted to run. She wanted to scream. But instead, she found herself staring into the depths of the orb, as if it were pulling her in. Suddenly, she saw a flash. A memory, not her own but someone else's. A vision of a young girl, standing at the edge of a cliff, staring down at the abyss below. The girl's face was blurred, but Lily knew it was Emma. Then the vision changed. The girl, Emma, was standing in a dark room, surrounded by shadows. Her face was twisted in pain, her hands clutching at her chest as if she were struggling to breathe. Her eyes were wide with terror, locked onto something in the distance that Lily couldn't see. "Emma!" Lily gasped, her voice breaking through the vision. But it wasn't enough. The image of Emma in pain faded, and Lily was left standing alone in the room, her chest heaving as she tried to steady her breath. "No!" she cried, her voice echoing in the silent, empty space. "You have seen the truth, child." The voice reverberated through her thoughts again, sending a shiver down her spine. "Emma has made her choice, and so must you." Lily staggered back, her head spinning. She couldn't do this. She couldn't choose. Not when she didn't even understand what the cost would be. But the voice wasn't finished. "The Midnight Carnival offers you what you desire most, your deepest wish. The price, however, will be different for you than it was for her." Lily felt a cold chill run through her veins as the voice faded. The room returned to its unsettling stillness, and the mist began to dissipate, leaving her standing in front of the glowing orb once more. Her mind raced. What was this place? What was this price the voice spoke of? Was she truly willing to pay any cost to find Emma? To save her? "Emma!" Lily whispered again, her voice trembling with uncertainty. And then, as though the very room were listening, a shadow flickered across the floor. Lily's breath caught in her throat as she looked down, her heart pounding. The shadow was moving, curling and twisting like smoke. It reached out, stretching toward her, and then, from the darkness, a figure emerged. "Lily?" Emma's voice drifted out of the shadows, soft and fragile, barely a whisper. Lily's heart stopped. She could barely breathe. Her hands shook as she reached out, but Emma remained just beyond her grasp, a wisp of a figure that seemed to fade as quickly as it appeared. "Emma!" Lily cried, stepping forward. But Emma only shook her head, a sad, defeated smile on her face. "Lily, you can't save me," Emma's voice echoed, distant and hollow. "I've already made my choice. Now it's your turn." "No!" Lily shouted, her voice breaking. "I'll save you. I'll find a way." But Emma was already disappearing into the mist, her form becoming nothing more than a fading shadow. Lily stumbled forward, her chest tight with panic. "No, Emma, please." The voice returned, a deep, resonant tone that filled the entire space. "Do you understand now, child? The cost has already been paid. You cannot save her. You can only save yourself." Lily's legs gave way, and she collapsed to her knees, her hands clutching at the soft mist. Tears blurred her vision, and for a moment, she couldn't tell if the tears were for Emma or for herself. But the voice didn't care. "Choose, child, your deepest desire, your price." Lily closed her eyes, the weight of the decision crushing her. What was her deepest desire? Was it to save Emma? To escape this nightmare? Or was it something more? Something buried deep inside her that she hadn't even fully understood yet? She could hear Emma's voice in her mind, soft and distant. "I've already made my choice. Now it's your turn." Her heart pounded in her chest as she stood, her breath shallow. She reached for the orb again, her fingers brushing its smooth surface, feeling the pulse beneath her skin. The orb hummed with energy, and the voice whispered in her mind again, urging her to make her choice. Her deepest desire. What was it? What was she willing to pay for? A sudden flash of clarity hit her like a bolt of lightning, and Lily's eyes widened in realization. She knew what she wanted. She knew what she was willing to risk. Lily's fingers trembled against the surface of the orb, and for a moment, she felt as though her heart had stopped beating. The world around her blurred into a haze, the swirling mist, the soft glow of the golden light. It all faded into the background. There was only the orb, only the choice. What is your deepest desire? The voice rumbled through her mind again, its tone now smooth, coaxing, as though the very air itself was waiting for her answer. What will you risk to have what you truly want? Her throat was dry, her chest tight, but one thought, one memory, kept pulsing in her mind. Emma, the image of her friend, pale and weak, standing on the edge of that dark abyss, flashed before Lily's eyes again. She could still hear Emma's voice calling for her, fading into the distance, out of reach. Lily's heart ached at the thought of leaving her behind. The price was clear now. The choice too. The voice that had guided her, taunted her, now seemed distant, as though it had receded into the shadows of the carnival. For a brief moment, the room fell silent, oppressive, heavy, and still. Lily took a deep breath, steadied herself, and spoke the words that had been swirling in her mind since she first set foot in this cursed place. "I want to save Emma," she said, her voice resolute, though the fear twisted in her gut. The orb before her pulsed with a sudden burst of light, bright enough to make her flinch. Then, as quickly as it came, the light faded, leaving the orb dim again, its glow barely perceptible. "So be it," the voice intoned, but this time, there was a sharpness to it, like the snap of a thread, a decision being made. Before Lily could react, the mist swirled violently, wrapping around her like a tight cocoon. It rose higher, twisting, turning in on itself, until Lily was completely engulfed in the suffocating fog. She gasped for air, but the mist seemed to thicken, filling her lungs with an almost tangible weight. Suddenly, the mist cleared, just as quickly as it had come. Lily found herself standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground beneath her feet crumbling away in jagged rocks. The sky above was an unnatural shade of purple, streaked with swirling clouds that seemed to pulse with a rhythm of their own. Far below, she could hear the crashing of waves against rocks, though the sea itself was hidden from view. The wind howled around her, pushing at her hair and clothes as though trying to force her off the edge. Her heart raced. She had no idea how she had gotten here, or what this place even was, but she knew one thing: it wasn't real. Not in the way the world she had left behind was. This was some kind of dream, a manifestation, a trap. "Emma!" Lily called out, her voice rising above the howling wind. "Emma! Where are you?" The wind picked up, and a shadow appeared before her. It was Emma, standing at the edge of the cliff. She looked different now, paler, her face gaunt, and her eyes hollow, as though she had been trapped in this place for far too long. Lily's breath caught in her throat. "Emma, you're here. Thank God, you're okay." Emma didn't respond at first. She simply stared out over the edge of the cliff, as though she couldn't hear Lily at all. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, her skin ashen. Slowly, Emma turned her head, and Lily's stomach churned at the cold emptiness she saw in her eyes. "Lily?" Emma's voice was barely a whisper, lost in the wind. "I'm so sorry. I made the wrong choice." Lily stepped forward, her chest tight with anxiety. "What do you mean? You're going to be okay. I'll get you out of here. Whatever this is, we can escape it. We can go home." Emma's eyes flickered with something. Guilt, maybe, or fear. But before she could speak again, the ground beneath their feet began to shake. The cliff trembled, cracks appearing in the jagged rocks that formed its edge. The wind howled louder, the sky above them darkening as something shifted in the atmosphere. "No, no, we have to go," Lily shouted, panic seizing her. She grabbed Emma's arm, trying to pull her away from the edge, but Emma didn't budge. "It's too late," Emma said, her voice hollow, resigned. "I made my choice, Lily. I wanted to be free, to escape the pain, the emptiness. But now I can never leave." Lily's breath caught in her throat as a dark shape rose from the depths below. At first, it looked like a cloud. No, a shadow, but as it drew closer, she realized it was much larger than that. A massive, twisted figure, humanoid in shape, but covered in a swirling cloak of shadows, appeared in the air before them. Its face was hidden in darkness, but the mere presence of it sent waves of terror through Lily's body. "No," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Who is that? What is that?" Emma's expression darkened, and her gaze shifted to the figure with growing dread. "That's the price," she whispered, her voice shaking. "The price we pay for our desires." Lily felt her knees go weak, her heart hammering in her chest. She had made her choice. She had wanted to save Emma. But what if there was no saving her? The shadowy figure reached toward them, its long, clawed fingers stretching toward the edge of the cliff, and Lily felt the ground beneath her feet begin to crumble. "Run!" she shouted, panic flooding her veins. She pulled Emma's arm again, trying to force her to move, but Emma stood frozen, staring at the creature with a look of horror and resignation. "It's too late, Lily. It's too late for me." Emma's voice faltered, her eyes filled with sorrow. "I chose this. I thought I could escape. But now," she closed her eyes, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Now it's your turn." Lily's mind raced. She couldn't lose Emma, not like this. She couldn't let her be consumed by whatever this thing was. With all the strength she could muster, Lily grabbed Emma by the shoulders and shook her. "We can still fight this. We can still change it. Please, Emma. Fight it." But Emma didn't respond. Instead, the shadowy figure's hand closed around them both. The last thing Lily saw was Emma's face, her expression torn between terror and a strange, almost peaceful acceptance, as the darkness swallowed them whole. Lily's world dissolved into darkness as the shadowy figure's grip tightened around her and Emma. She tried to scream, but the sound was swallowed by the oppressive void that surrounded them. Every nerve in her body screamed in terror, but her limbs felt heavy, as if something was draining the very strength from her. She tried to pull away, but no matter how hard she struggled, the darkness only deepened. It was as if the very air was thick with despair, each breath a battle, each movement a futile attempt to escape. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the darkness lifted. Lily found herself lying on cold, hard ground, gasping for air. The scent of damp earth filled her nose, and she could hear the faint rustling of leaves in the wind. Her body ached, her limbs stiff and sore, but when she opened her eyes, she was no longer on the edge of that crumbling cliff. She was somewhere else, somewhere wrong. The sky above was an unsettling shade of red, casting an eerie glow over the landscape. The trees surrounding her were twisted, their branches gnarled and reaching toward the sky like skeletal fingers. The ground was barren, cracked in places, as if life itself had been drained from the earth. "Emma," Lily whispered, her voice trembling. She sat up, her head spinning from the disorienting transition, but there was no sign of her friend. "Emma," she called again, louder this time, her voice echoing in the stillness. No answer. The silence was unnerving, as though the world itself had gone mute, waiting for something to happen. Her heart raced in her chest, her throat tight with anxiety. She couldn't understand what was happening. One moment she had been standing with Emma at the edge of the cliff, and now she was alone, in this strange, haunting place. But then she saw it. A figure stood in the distance, cloaked in shadow, its features obscured. For a moment, Lily thought it might be Emma, but as she stood and took a step forward, the figure turned, revealing the unmistakable silhouette of a man. Tall, broad-shouldered, his face hidden in darkness. Her pulse quickened. "Who are you?" Lily demanded, trying to sound more confident than she felt. But her voice came out shaking, swallowed by the vast emptiness around her. The figure didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took a step toward her, his movement fluid and almost unnatural, like he wasn't bound by the same laws of gravity that governed the world she knew. His footsteps made no sound on the cracked earth, as though he was walking on air. Lily's instincts screamed at her to run, but her feet wouldn't move. She felt rooted to the ground, her legs frozen in place, as though the air itself was keeping her still. The figure stopped just a few feet away from her, and his voice filled the air. A low, cold whisper that sent a shiver down her spine. "You've made your choice, child," he said, his voice smooth, like silk, but with an edge of something ancient and cruel. "You wanted to save her, but there is no salvation for the lost." Lily's breath hitched in her throat. "What are you talking about? Where's Emma? What have you done to her?" The figure's lips twisted into something that might have been a smile, though it was hidden beneath the darkness of his hood. "Emma made her choice long before you ever entered this place," he replied. "She came seeking freedom just as you did. But there is no freedom in the Midnight Carnival. Only the price of desire, Lily's heart raced as she tried to process his words. "You're lying," she spat, her voice shaking with anger and fear. "She's not lost. I can save her. I will save her." The figure's expression remained unreadable, but his voice dropped lower, as though speaking directly into her mind. "You cannot save what has already been claimed." Suddenly, the air grew colder. The ground beneath her feet seemed to tremble, as though it were alive, shifting and groaning beneath her. The twisted trees around her began to sway, their branches bending in unnatural ways, as if something was stirring within the forest itself. Lily took a step back, her heart hammering in her chest. "What is this place? What is this thing you've created?" The figure's eyes, if they could be called that, glowed faintly from within the darkness of his hood. For the first time, he stepped closer to her, his presence growing more oppressive with every inch. "This is the price of desire, child," he repeated, his voice filling the air around her. "The Midnight Carnival offers dreams, yes, but those who seek to claim them must pay. And once you've made the choice, there is no turning back." Lily's mind raced as the weight of his words settled on her like a stone. The carnival had promised them what they desired most. Emma had come for freedom. She had wanted to escape the pain, the emptiness of her life. And now she was lost. But what about Lily? What had she desired when she stepped into this place? She had come for Emma, yes. But had she been so sure of what she wanted that she had failed to see the cost? Is there no way to escape?" Lily asked, her voice small, as if the question alone might make her a target of whatever power the figure held over this place. The figure's smile, if it could be called that, widened, revealing teeth that glistened like obsidian in the dim light. "There is always a way," he said, his voice low and menacing. "But it comes with a cost. A greater price than you can imagine." Lily's heart sank as she tried to process his words. What was she being asked to sacrifice? Was there a way to save Emma? Or was it already too late? As if reading her thoughts, the figure's next words chilled her to the bone. "You will be given a choice, Lily. The same choice Emma made. Freedom for one. But at the expense of another." Lily recoiled, fear clawing at her throat. "No, I won't choose that. I won't make the same mistake she did." The figure's shadowy form seemed to blur, becoming more fluid as he stepped closer. "The price of desire is never easy, child. But you will make your choice just as she did. There is no escaping the price. It must be paid." Lily stumbled backward, her mind racing for an answer. She had to save Emma, had to. But what would it cost her? Was there a way out of this place? Or was the only way forward to give in to the darkness, to make a choice that would condemn someone else? Her heart twisted in her chest as she realized that she had already stepped too far into the Midnight Carnival to turn back. There was no going home, no returning to the life she had known. And the figure, this man, this being who stood before her, was the only one who could show her the way forward. The figure loomed before Lily, his presence swallowing the light around them, casting everything in a shadow that felt too deep to escape. His words, cold and deliberate, lingered in the air like a foul stench. "You will make your choice," the figure repeated, his voice like a whisper in the wind. "The cost is always the same. One must be lost for another to be saved. That is the law of the Midnight Carnival." Lily's heart pounded in her chest, her breath shallow. She took an unsteady step back, her feet sinking slightly into the barren ground beneath her. Her fingers trembled as they curled into fists. The ground seemed to shudder, the earth beneath her feet vibrating with the weight of something ancient and powerful, as though the very fabric of the world was bending to the will of the figure. "No," Lily whispered, shaking her head, the words barely leaving her lips. I won't make that choice." The figure's dark, cloaked face remained unreadable, but Lily could feel the weight of his gaze on her, pressing in, suffocating her. His silence stretched on, dragging out the tension between them like a taut rope, pulled to its breaking point. "Do you think you have a choice?" he asked, his voice low, the words curling around her like smoke. "The carnival gives, but it takes. There is no escaping that." Lily's pulse quickened. Then why did you bring me here? Why did you bring Emma here? What is this place? The figure let out a low, eerie chuckle, the sound echoing in the stillness of the twisted, desolate landscape. You know the answer, child. You always have. The carnival is a place of desire, of dreams and wishes. But like all things born of desire, it is tainted. No wish is free of a price. His voice grew softer, almost coaxing now. What is it that you want, Lily? What is the one thing you would give everything for? Ask yourself that, and you will know what must be done. Lily's thoughts raced, spiraling in on themselves. What was she truly willing to sacrifice? She had come here to save Emma, to bring her friend back from the brink. But now it seemed as though saving Emma meant losing something more. Someone else. The wind picked up, swirling around them with an eerie hiss, like whispers from the past. The red sky above began to darken, and the air itself seemed to grow heavier, pressing in on Lily's chest, suffocating her. She glanced around, her gaze searching for any sign of escape, but the barren, twisted trees offered no comfort. The world around her seemed to close in. Is there really no way to save both of us? She whispered, more to herself than to the figure. Is that what you're saying? The figure didn't answer right away, allowing the silence to stretch between them. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely audible above the wind. There is always a way, but it will cost you more than you realize. Lily's heart skipped a beat. She wanted to scream, to shout that she would do anything to save Emma, but she knew the truth. Anything came at a price, and no matter what she chose, it would tear at her soul. Suddenly, the figure's form seemed to shimmer, and Lily felt a strange pull toward him, as though the darkness itself was drawing her in. Her legs were no longer under her control. She tried to resist, to move away, but her body betrayed her. She was being forced to step forward. Do you want to understand the price, Lily? The figure asked, his voice now a mere breath in her ear. Then come with me. See what has become of those who made the same choice as you. Before Lily could protest, the world around her shifted violently, the ground beneath her feet twisting and warping like it was made of liquid. In an instant, she found herself standing in the center of a vast, desolate expanse. An open space that stretched out endlessly, swallowed by an oppressive fog. It was a place that felt wrong, as though it was neither here nor there, caught in some purgatory between worlds. And there, scattered throughout the fog, were others. At first, Lily couldn't make them out. Figures in the mist, moving slowly, like shadows stretched long by a dying sun. But as her eyes adjusted to the dim light, she saw them more clearly. People, their faces pale and vacant, their eyes hollow. They walked in a slow, trance-like shuffle, their expressions frozen in an expression of quiet despair. Who are they? Lily whispered, her voice cracking with the weight of the question. They are the ones who came before you, the figure said, his voice now cold and distant. Those who, like Emma, sought to escape their pain, their fears, their desires. They chose to abandon their burdens, and in doing so, they gave up their very souls. Lily's breath hitched in her chest as she watched the figures move through the fog, their movements slow and mechanical, as though they had lost all sense of purpose. Some of them had once been children, young faces twisted by grief. Others were older, their skin weathered and worn. But they all had one thing in common: emptiness. They're not alive, Lily said, the words barely forming. They've been taken, haven't they? The figure did not respond immediately. Instead, he gestured toward one of the figures, a woman whose face was gaunt and drawn, her eyes wide with a vacant stare. She walked with the others, her steps dragging, as if she were tethered to the ground by some invisible force. That is Clara, the figure said, his tone a little softer now. She was once like you, full of hope, full of life. She sought freedom just as you do. But the price she paid was the same as the others. Lily's heart clenched in her chest as she watched the woman shuffle past her. There was something familiar about her, a sense of recognition. But it was fleeting, as though the memory was just out of reach. Clara, Lily whispered, stepping forward. her hand reaching out as if to touch her. But before she could make contact, the figure moved, blocking her path. "You will not change what has been done," he said, his voice colder now. "None of them were able to escape. None of them will ever leave this place. They made their choice, and now they are bound to the carnival, as you will be." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she held them back, refusing to let the figure see her fear. "I won't make the same mistake. I won't let Emma be like them." The figure's eyes, now visible beneath his hood, glimmered with something almost cruel. "You think you can save her?" he asked, his tone mocking. "You think you can undo what has already been done? The price has been paid, Lily. There is no turning back." Lily stood frozen, her mind a whirlwind of confusion and desperation. There had to be a way to break this cycle. There had to be a way to save Emma and herself, without succumbing to the darkness that threatened to consume them both. But deep in her heart, she knew the truth. In the Midnight Carnival, nothing came without a cost. The eerie silence of the desolate place settled over Lily, the weight of her thoughts suffocating her. She stood there, her mind reeling, as the fog shifted around her like a living thing. The figures that wandered aimlessly through the mist, forever lost, their faces twisted in silent agony, haunted her thoughts. Clara, the woman who had once sought freedom, now reduced to nothing more than a shell of what she had been. And Emma, was that to be her fate too? Lily's heart hammered in her chest as the figure, the dark presence that had haunted her since the moment she stepped foot in the carnival, waited in silence, watching her with unreadable eyes. The air between them felt heavy, laden with the unspoken truths of the Midnight Carnival. The truth of the price they had all paid, the truth of the twisted bargains that were made in the dead of night. She couldn't let Emma become like them. She couldn't. The figure's words echoed in her mind. There is no turning back. But Lily refused to believe it. She had to find a way, some way to break free from the curse that bound them all. She turned her gaze to the figures wandering in the mist, their hollow eyes locked on nothing, their movements slow and robotic. They were lost, trapped in this twisted, nightmarish place, their desires having consumed them until they were nothing but ghosts of their former selves. Lily's throat tightened as she turned back to the figure who stood before her, still cloaked in shadow. "Tell me," she said, her voice sharp with desperation, "is there really no way out? Is this how it ends for all of us?" The figure tilted his head slightly, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling intensity. For a long moment, he said nothing, the silence stretching between them like a tightrope. Then slowly he spoke. "There is always a way out," he said, his voice like gravel scraping against stone. "But as with all things in the carnival, the cost is high. You must choose, Lily. What is more important to you, yourself or her?" Lily's stomach churned. "I won't," she began, but the figure cut her off with a single raised hand. "Don't lie to me," he said softly, yet his voice rang with an authority that made her blood run cold. "I can feel your desire. I can feel the weight of your choice pressing down on you. You came here for her, didn't you? You would trade everything, your soul, your life, your very being, just to save her. I can see it in you." Lily trembled, his words sinking in like a poison. She had come here for Emma, yes, but at what cost? How far was she willing to go? Was she truly willing to throw everything away? Her humanity, her future, herself? The figure stepped closer, his shadow swallowing her whole. "You have seen the price of desire," he whispered. "Now you must pay it. Do you choose to save Emma at the expense of your own soul? Or do you choose yourself and leave her to her fate?" Lily's head spun. Every fiber of her being screamed to choose Emma, to save her, to pull her back from the edge of this darkness. But the figure was right. What did that mean for her? Would she lose herself in the process? Would she become just another hollow shell like those wandering aimlessly through the mist? The weight of the decision pressed on her chest, suffocating her. Her mind raced, and for the first time, she felt a terrible truth settle deep within her. There was no easy answer here. There was no right choice. Lily turned, her eyes scanning the faces of the lost ones. The people who had come before her, their eyes empty, their lives stolen. She looked at Clara, who seemed to be watching her from the fog, her face a twisted mask of regret and sorrow. She could see the woman's lips move, forming words that Lily couldn't quite hear, but the sorrow in her eyes was enough. Don't make the same mistake. But it wasn't just Clara's warning that echoed in her ears. It was Emma's face, her laughing, vibrant face, the girl who had been her best friend for as long as Lily could remember. Emma had come here for freedom, and now she was lost. Trapped in this hellish carnival her soul already claimed. Lily felt tears slip down her cheeks as she whispered, almost to herself, I can't leave her here. I won't. I love her. The figure's laugh was soft, almost pitying. Love? Love means nothing here. Desire is what drives the carnival. And desire always demands a price. The darkness around them seemed to close in, the mist thickening, as if the very world was holding its breath. Lily's heart pounded in her ears, and for a moment, she was consumed by fear. Fear that no matter what she chose, the darkness would claim them both. And yet, in the midst of it all, something within her clicked into place. A thought, a realization, a final understanding. Lily looked up at the figure, her tear-streaked face hardening with resolve. I choose her, she said, her voice stronger now. I choose Emma. If I lose myself in the process, so be it. I can't leave her here. I'll do whatever it takes to bring her back. The figure's eyes gleamed, and for a moment, Lily thought she saw a flicker of something. An approval, perhaps. Then, in the blink of an eye, the landscape around them shifted. The fog thickened, the trees seemed to bend and twist, and the ground beneath her feet seemed to tremble as though the carnival itself was waking. And then, just as quickly, Lily found herself standing alone. The figure was gone. She was back at the edge of the cliff, the place where she and Emma had first stepped into this nightmare. But something was different now. The air was no longer thick with the weight of the unknown. There was a silence, a stillness in the air, like everything was waiting. And there, standing before her, was Emma. She was alive. She was whole. But her eyes, those bright, vibrant eyes, were clouded with something Lily couldn't quite place. It was as if Emma had returned, but something about her had changed. She stood motionless, her gaze distant, almost empty. Lily's breath caught in her throat. Emma, she whispered, her voice breaking. Emma, is it really you? Emma's lips parted, but the words that came from her mouth were not the ones Lily had expected. Lily, Emma's voice was hollow, distant. You've made your choice. Lily's heart sank. She reached out, desperate to hold her friend, to pull her close. But Emma stepped back, her face expressionless, her body stiff. I'm lost now, Lily, Emma said, her voice barely audible. And so are you. A cold chill ran down Lily's spine as she realized the horrible truth. She had saved Emma, but in doing so, had she lost herself forever? Lily stood frozen, the weight of Emma's words crashing over her like a tidal wave. She had done it, she had made the choice. She had saved Emma. But now it felt like the victory was hollow, as if something essential had slipped through her fingers. Emma's eyes were vacant, distant, like she wasn't truly seeing Lily, or anything at all. The bright spark that had once defined her friend was gone, replaced by a cold emptiness that sent a chill through Lily's bones. The girl who had once been her best friend, her closest companion, was standing before her. But was she really her anymore? Emma, Lily whispered, her voice trembling. What's happening to you? What did I do? Emma didn't respond immediately. Instead, she looked past Lily, her gaze drifting to the swirling fog that still enveloped the carnival's grounds, a reminder that they were still trapped in the twisted, nightmarish world of the Midnight Carnival. Emma began, her voice hollow, as if the words themselves had to fight their way to the surface. I don't know, Lily. I feel empty, like I'm not really here. Not really me. Lily's heart twisted in her chest. This wasn't what she had imagined. This wasn't what she had fought for. She had chosen to save Emma, thinking that she could pull her friend from the grip of the carnival. But now Emma seemed like a shadow of her former self. She looked so lost, The ground beneath them shifted, as though the world itself was reacting to their presence. The fog began to swirl more violently, the eerie lights flickering in the distance as if the carnival were alive, watching, waiting. "You didn't make a bargain just for her, did you, Lily?" A voice boomed from behind her. The figure, the one who had haunted her from the start, was standing there again, his dark cloak billowing around him like a storm cloud. His eyes were glowing with a sinister light. Lily spun around, her heart pounding in her chest. "What do you mean? I saved her. I made the choice. I chose Emma." The figure's lips twisted into a cruel smile, and he stepped closer, his presence suffocating. "Ah yes, you saved her. But you forget one thing." Lily swallowed hard, her breath catching in her throat. What did I forget?" "The Midnight Carnival always demands its price." "Lily," the figure said, his voice low and mocking. "You made a choice, and now you must pay." Lily's mind raced. "I did pay. I gave everything to save her. Everything I had. What more do you want from me?" The figure's grin widened, revealing teeth far too sharp to be human. "Everything, Lily. Your soul." The world seemed to tilt beneath her feet as those words sunk in. What do you mean?" The figure's voice was almost pitying now. "You think you saved her, but in doing so, you sacrificed yourself. You gave up your essence, your very being, so that she could live. And now—" his eyes gleamed with a cruel amusement. "Now you are like all the others. A lost soul, bound to the carnival forever." Lily felt her stomach drop. She reached out to Emma, but her friend didn't seem to notice her, her gaze still fixed on the swirling fog. "No," Lily whispered, her voice trembling. "No, that's not what I wanted. I didn't mean to, but it's done." The figure interrupted, his voice sharp and final. "The carnival doesn't care about intentions. It only cares about the cost. And now you will walk the path of the lost, just like Clara. Just like all those who came before you." Lily turned back to Emma, her chest tightening with despair. "Emma, please," she cried. "Please, come back to me. You're still in there, I know you are. Fight this. Please." But Emma didn't move. She didn't even blink. "Emma!" Lily's voice cracked, desperation clawing at her throat. The figure's laughter filled the air, cold and hollow. "You think she can hear you? You think she can come back from this? She is lost, Lily. And so are you." Lily felt the weight of his words crashing down on her. She was lost. They both were. And the carnival would never let them go. Suddenly, Emma stirred. Her eyes flickered, and for a brief, fleeting moment, a faint glimmer of recognition passed through them. She blinked, as if waking from a dream. "Lily?" she whispered, her voice weak, trembling. Lily's heart leapt in her chest. "Emma, you're back. You—" But before she could finish, Emma's face twisted into something else. Her expression went blank again, her lips curving into a strange, almost painful smile. "I'm sorry, Lily," Emma said softly, her voice distant once more. "I didn't want this either. But I can't come back. We can't come back." Lily's breath caught in her throat. No, you're still in there. I won't let you go." But Emma's gaze was empty once more, and she began to walk away, moving slowly, her footsteps heavy and deliberate. She passed through the fog, blending into the mist, and Lily's heart shattered. "No!" Lily screamed, but it was too late. The carnival's grip had taken Emma. It had taken her, and it had taken Lily too. The figure stepped forward, his eyes glowing with a final wicked light. "Now you see, Lily," he said, his voice thick with finality. "You made the choice, and now you will walk the path of the lost with her. Together. Forever." Lily sank to her knees, her mind a swirl of grief and helplessness. She had made the ultimate sacrifice. She had chosen Emma, and in doing so, she had lost herself, her soul now bound to the Midnight Carnival forever. The figure's voice echoed in the distance as the fog closed in around Lily. "Welcome to the carnival, Lily. Welcome to your eternal home." And with those final words, the darkness consumed them both. The Midnight Carnival had claimed them, as it claimed so many before. Forever. Lily stood frozen in the mist, her breath shallow, the weight of the figure's words crashing down on her like a tidal wave. Emma's empty, distant eyes sent a chill through her. She had saved her, hadn't she? She had made the sacrifice, paid the price. But it hadn't been enough. Emma wasn't herself. Lily could see that now, as she reached out. But her friend took a step back, further into the shadows, her face empty, her smile wrong. "No," Lily whispered, her heart shattering. "Please no. Come back to me." But Emma didn't move. She didn't even blink. She was gone. Lily's chest tightened. The figure, standing behind her, his cold eyes glowing in the darkness, watched it all unfold. He had spoken the truth all along. There was no escape, no way out. Once the carnival claimed someone, there was nothing left of them. "You did this," Lily spat, her voice shaking with rage and disbelief. "You did this to her." The figure's eyes darkened, but he remained silent, unmoving. The mist grew heavier, swirling around Lily's feet, drowning her in its cold embrace. I don't care," Lily whispered, her voice breaking. "I won't let you have me too." But the figure's laugh, low and mocking, reverberated in the air. "It's too late for that, Lily. The carnival's price is already paid." She reached for Emma again, her hand trembling, but the mist parted, and Emma was gone. All that remained was the echo of the sound of her footsteps fading into the abyss. Lily sank to her knees, tears flooding her eyes. The world seemed to spin around her, her body trembling with the realization that her friend, her best friend, was lost. She had sacrificed everything to save her. But now they were both lost in the carnival, bound by its cruel rules. The figure stepped forward, his shadow swallowing her whole. "The Midnight Carnival always claims what it is owed," he said, his voice like ice. "You thought you could bargain with the carnival, but in the end, it is always the one who decides." Lily's heart clenched with a mix of despair and rage. She wanted to scream, to fight back, but there was no fighting the darkness. The figure raised a hand, and suddenly, the mist thickened, closing in around her, as though the carnival itself was drawing its final veil over her. "No, please," Lily whispered, her body shaking. "Let me go. Let us go. We didn't deserve this." The figure's eyes flickered, as though he was considering her words. But there was no mercy in his gaze. "There is no mercy here," he said quietly. "The carnival has no place for those who regret their choices. You are here now, and you will never leave." Lily's body trembled, not just from fear, but from the deep, overwhelming sorrow that consumed her. She had made the choice. She had chosen to save Emma. But in the end, the carnival had taken both of them. She closed her eyes, the weight of the loss too much to bear. She had failed. She had failed Emma. And now she was lost. Just another soul trapped in the Midnight Carnival. And somewhere, in the heart of the darkness, she could hear Emma's faint voice, a whisper in the wind. "I'm sorry, Lily. We're both lost now." The carnival had claimed them. Forever.